Hello guys, my name is Nikolai. Nice to meet you again on my video lessons. Today we're going to continue with SQL Server 2014, and this lessons is going to provide you with the theoretical and practical background of how to create the tables in SQL Server using Management Studio. Let's achieve the objectives for today. We want to understand how to create a database and tables using SQL Server Management Studio Designer. We want to understand the differences between the primary and foreign keys, and we want to learn how to create a table using Query Editor. Alright, we're going to have the following diagram of our tables in our database once we create them. We want to have the two tables, task and status. The task one will have task ID as a primary column, task name, description, status ID, and date created, and status table will have ID as a primary key and name. And there'll be relationships as many to one, so it means that one status, let's say with done or in progress, will have multiple tasks. Each task will have which task will have done or in progress, and it can be many tasks with done status, or it can be many tasks with in progress status. Alright, okay, let's open the Microsoft Management Studio. Let's connect to the server and let's see if we have any databases. For the sample for this lesson, we don't have anything. I want to create a database first, and then we'll create the tables. We can do the creation of our database using a query, and you can use it. You can create your database using a designer. So to do it with a designer, just hit right click on database and new database, and then specify your name. But I'm going to do that with the query. I'm gonna do the following query to create our database. Create database, and I want to create a time tracker database. It will track the time for the task and statuses. Alright, and then execute the command, and we find. Let's refresh the databases and see if we have our database in here. Yeah, we do have. Okay, we want to create the two tables. So if you expand the time tracker database, you'll see the tables folder. You don't have any tables right now. Let's create the first table, and I want to create first one, the status. I want to do the ID, and then it's going to be integer, and I don't want a nulls on it. I want to do a name column. I want to do it varchar with 50 characters length, and I don't want nulls on it. So what means this is the data type that you have to provide, integer, and varchar, this is string and this is integer. And then allow nulls or don't allow nulls. So we don't want to annul nulls. It means that each time that you have, if you want to insert a value, you have to specify some value for the ID and for the name. And then I want to make it as a primary key column, and it means that it will be a uniquely column in this table, and we won't have any repeatedly records in our table. Each time we make an insertion, we'll have a unique row for the ID. Alright, okay, now let's do some more modifications. I want to do the column and column specification for ID. I want to do it each time you make an insertion, you don't have to specify the ID, and then it will be easy. So it will automatically insert a value by the SQL Server will automatically insert the value for the ID column. And then so to do that, just go on the column properties. You can just do it like that, properties over here, and then you'll see this window on the bottom. And then if you go on the identity specification, and then you have just to say yes for the identity. Is it identity? Yes, it is identity. And then identity increment 1, identity speed 1, and that's it. Ctrl S, and we want to save it as a status table. Alright, okay, we have just created a table, and we can see it in here once we refresh Good, we have status. Now let's create the task table, the same new table, and then I want to do a task ID column is going to be integer, no nulls. I want to do task name and varchar 50 length, no nulls. I want to do description and varchar, and I want to do max value here, so it won't have any limitation on the string characters, and I don't want to have nulls as well. And let's do the status ID column. So we want to have the relationships between the status and task, and I want to do it as an integer value. And in this case I'll leave the checkbox for allow nulls. It means that when we make an insertion, we can specify a value or we cannot specify a value. It depends what the situation. If let's say if you have any data in the status, you can specify a value for status ID for the task table. But if you don't have at the time of insertion in task table, if you don't have any statuses at that moment, you can just leave it null and you will be fine. The SQL Server will not throw any exception. And let's do the date created, and it's going to be a datetime and no nulls. Okay, let's set as a primary key task ID, and let's do the identity specification for our task ID. So the same properties, and you'll see this window. Go to the identity specification, and let's set is identity yes, and so the value is 1 and 1. This increment and speed is just like that. Alright, so we find hit Ctrl S. Let's name it as task, and okay. Now we have two tables. Let's refresh our tables and see which ones we have. Okay, let's see the diagram of our tables. Select the tasks and then add and close this window. And okay, we have two tables, task and status. We don't have any relationships between those tables, but we want to have a relationship. We want to have many to one relationships, like many tasks for one status. Alright, to do that, we have to you can do it in two ways. You can do it in the designer mode here, like on a diagram. Just press right click on your on the table and then relationships, or you can do it even here. Let's say if you go on task table and then you click design, and then you'll see the design view, and then you can right click on status ID column and then relationships. I want to add the relationship. I want to go to the table and specification column, table and column specification, and then if I hit this button over here, I'll see it will show me you can provide the relationship name. So we want to have the primary key value for the task table, and the column is going to be, the table is going to be status, and we want the ID column to be the primary key for these relationships. And then for the foreign key table, we want to have the task table, and we want to specify status ID as a foreign key constraint for this table. And this will make us foreign key relationships between the task and status table. And then if you hit OK and close, don't forget to save that first. Alright, we save everything. Status, the following table will be saved to your database. Yes. Alright, now we just have created the relationships. Let's see the diagram how it changed, and select these two tables, add and close. Good, we have the results that we want to have, that we just have seen before on my screen. We have the relationships between task and status, and we want to have multiple tasks for one status. this is multiple many to one relationships, the same as it here. Okay, we just made it with using the designer, but we want to learn how to use a query, and this is the scope of this lesson. Basically, we don't have to use the designer in any case, so I want you really guys not to use a designer, because in a project, in a real life project, you won't use a designer. If you're gonna provide if you want to do the the production code, you won't use the designer. You have to write scripts, so we have to learn how to write scripts to create our tables. So let's do, we already have our database, let's do use of time tracker. Alright, and I want to show you the script how to create first the status as a primary table. We want to create let's do the go statement, and then we want to create a table, and we want to call it as status. Yeah, create table. 1 second. We want to create a table which is going to be with the name of status, and okay, I just forgot to specify the schema name, and then status table, the name of the table status, and then you open the round braces and you close the round braces. Okay, we want to have the ID column of type of integer, and we want to set it as a primary key, and we don't want a nulls on this column, right? No nulls, not nulls. Alright, and then we want to do okay, let's set it as in square braces. Okay, and now let's do, alright, I see it makes an error because we have those tables already. Let's remove the tables first, and we want to remove first the task. Okay, and then status. Now we fine, we don't have those, we won't have any errors in here. Okay, let's do the name column, and we want to do it as envarchar of length 50, and we don't want a nulls on it as well. Alright, good. Now we find, let's run this query and see what happens. So you see, I don't have to specify in this case master context. I'm making sure in my query that I'm using the time tracker database, and then I can create a table. Let's run this query and see. Alright, I forgot to put the dot in the between the schema and status. Okay, let's run it again, execute. Yes, we're good. Let's refresh the tables. Yeah, we're right. We have the status and we have it as a primary column, and then let's do a second table, and we want to create the task table, the child table for this one. Let's create let's create again table, and I want to call it as, I want to specify the DBO schema dot task, and I want to open again braces and close them. Okay, let's do the task ID first. I want to do, is it an integer, and I want to do it as a primary key with identity of 1, and with step 1 the speed, and then not null. Alright, so the same is going to be for the task name, description, and date create. I'm just going to copy and paste, not to waste your time, guys, and my time as well. Just copy and paste that, and okay, okay, I'm just making everything looking nice. Okay, and we're fine. Now I'm going to explain you everything what I just did. I just created I made a query for creating a task table with this following the same columns: task ID, task name, description, status ID, date created. So for the task ID is going to be of type integer, primary key, identity. You remember we were doing in the designer mode identity specification, we were specifying the increment value and the speed. So the increment value is 1 and the speed is 1. Each time we insert a value, it will automatically insert 1, and then the second time it will be this 2, and you know the speed, that means the speed it will increment by 1 the value for the task ID. And you don't have to specify in the insertion, you don't have to specify the task value for this column. Okay, alright, the task name is going to be nvarchar with 50 characters length, no null. Description is nvarchar max, so it's no limitation for this table, for this column. And we want to define the foreign key relationships. Okay, in this code you can see that I'm creating the status table column. I'm specifying is it integer value, and I want to do is as a foreign key which references the status table and which column, ID column, right? So it will go and see if there is a status table. Yes, it is a status table. Is there any ID column? Yes, there is an ID column. And then it has to be a primary key. So if it's a foreign key, here it has to be a primary key, and then it will make the relationships between these two tables of status and task. These relationships just on this, you can see on the image. And that's it you have to do for the relationships, and you have to make sure that the the status table exists and it has the ID column and its primary key. And then they created datetime net null. Alright, let's select this and execute, and we good as well. Let's refresh our column, our tables, and we have these two tables, right? Let's see the diagram really quick if it's changed from the previous one. Yes, add, close. Yeah, we do have the results that we want to have, right? We have task table. It can be many tasks for one status. Let's say if we have done status, and we can have multiple tasks with done status, right? That means these relationships. And let's say if you have in progress, you can have many tasks in progress, and it's just one in progress status which can have multiple tasks. And these relationships between the ID and status ID here, what does it mean, these relationships? Let's check. Let's do the first insert. I want to do edit top 20 rows. Okay, and let's do, remember you don't have to specify a value because it has an auto increment, so I just can do done. Oops, what does it say? It said that data in row 1 was not committed. Cannot insert the value null into column ID table. Oh, okay. Let's do 1. Okay, I didn't specify the because we did the query, and in the query we didn't specify the increment for the table, for the column ID of status table. So we have to specify the value for ID and then done. Okay, let's do the second, and it's gonna be in progress. And let's do the third, and it's gonna be in progress, and let's say create. Okay, good. Let's save this, and let's do the insertion for task and see if we can specify the status ID, or what means the relationships. Okay, we don't have to specify the task ID for now. Let's do the task name, a description, So let's do null. Let's leave it null, and then date created is going to be 04. Alright, let's do 12 and 2015, for example. Good. So we can do null, we can leave null, right? And we can actually specify a value, or we can just leave it null. And it means that it doesn't have any association with table status, right, at this time, if you don't specify any value. Let's try to insert another value, another task with the name b description, and we want to specify the ID of this for the task, for the status ID. Let's say we want to do it as null, as a in progress, right? So we want to specify the value of 2, and we want to do a date of 02/04/2015, for example. Doesn't matter. Okay, so the table, we see the insertion goes, and it means the status ID of 2 association with the status of here. So it means that this status of this task B has a relationships with the status ID column of 2, and it means that this status is in progress right now. So this is the relationships between these two tables. This means the relationships that we just created, and we just created those tables, and we can see the diagram I'm just showing you. So if we let's try to insert a C, and we want to insert the C description. Okay, and let's try to insert a value which not exists in this table, right? Let's say we want to do it 4, and let's do it as a date of 2015, and I hit tab, and you see it throws an exception, and it says the message: the insert statement conflicted with the foreign key constraint, because we have a constraint. The conflict occurs in this database of status column ID. So we cannot insert 4 for the status ID, because we don't have any value for the 4, right? The ID, we have only 1, 2, and 3. We cannot insert 4, 5, and so on. We can only insert 1, 2, and 3. This is the relationships, this is the constraint, the foreign key constraint with the status and task tables. Alright, this is how it works. So to resolve this issue, let's insert the 3. Let's see, 3 is going to be created, and hit tab, and we find. So the C task name C has a description, and it's in status of created. Alright. Okay, I hope you guys enjoying these lessons, and I just show you the quick background of how to create tables using the designer mode, and how to create tables using a query mode. So this is the query that you have to use for creating the tables, and if you have already the database, so you can use your database, and then you create the first table, the primary table, and then you create the child table, which has the relationships, foreign key relationships between status and task. This is the really quick example. I want to show you this table, and I want to mention something really important for you to know. So the primary key, what is a primary key? It's uniquely identify a record in a table. We cannot have 2 records with the same ID. Let's say if it's a primary key, this means that it's gonna be just the only one record in this table. It won't repeat again for the next row. And foreign key, you can have a field in a table that is a primary key in another table. Alright, so the foreign key is a field in a table that is a primary key in another table. In our case, we have primary key as a task ID, and foreign key in this case is status ID, which is which has a primary key ID in status table, right? Okay, primary key cannot accept null values. We know that, and you have to remember that we all the times we have specify a value. For the foreign key, you can accept null. So in our example, you remember, so let's say this one, you have a null here for the foreign key, right? You can accept nulls. Alright, and then the next, the indexes. So the primary key is a clustered index, and it means, what is an index? Index is it actually helps you easier, makes the query for you, and if you index it, it will run the queries faster, and is a clustered index. If you have a primary key, it's already a clustered index, right? So for the foreign key, it doesn't automatically create for you, it doesn't automatically create for you the index or cluster. You just have to do it manually if you want to create an index for the foreign key. Okay, and then we can have only one primary key in a table, and for the foreign key you can have multiple, as many as you want foreign keys in a table. So we can add a task in the table of task, we can add as many foreign key as we want. Alright, thank you guys for listening. I guess I hope you will follow me on my blog, Tutorials Rocks, and if you guys have any questions, just write me on my email, and I wish you guys have a great day. Thank you.